the recording. And so, as said, today's topic is the sort of specifics of education outside the United States. So for the students of those of you who have attended the last several meetings, you know we've been primarily talking about the United States. So Professor Anshu Arora, Amit Arora, we know mostly about the United States and a little bit more about Canada. Maybe we mentioned a couple of things about Australia that is sort of a little bit more similar to Canada than to the United States. But there is a whole world of education, universities, world-class universities in other parts of the world. And so obviously you have Europe. And so you know that Europe may be much cheaper, for example. But then also it's not only Europe, there are interesting education opportunities in Asia, in the Middle East. And so there are many things that need to be sort of taken into account when you're making those considerations. And so we invited several professors here to share our experience. We will start with Professor Ilan Alon. He's interesting because he studied, taught, worked in multiple, not only countries, but continents. So he spent a good portion of his career in the United States. Now he's in Norway. He also teaches extensively in Asia. He has good connections to some Middle Eastern countries like Israel. And so in private discussions, he shared some interesting things that I'm taking into account as I'm sort of trying to decide what my kid will be doing. And I thought you would be interested to hear those things. So we'll go one by one. And so Professor Alon, please, could you share your thoughts and tips and advice?
Well, I think there are several levels of thinking about choosing the right school, or for that matter, the right service. Probably many of you have heard of the globalization of services. You know, previously when we thought about globalization, we thought about products moving from one country to another, and some comparative advantages that certain countries have in producing these products. But in terms of services, really the globalization of services and more specifically education has been very, very recent. And one of the reasons for it is that there are strong barriers to entry for the education market and the professional market. And one of these barriers to entry is language. So I guess what I suggest people to do, first and foremost, is to do kind of a SWOT analysis of themselves, to try to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, but particularly what languages do they speak, what passports do they hold, because that will have a significant impact. For example, regulatory restrictions over immigration in the United States have an impact on someone who might want to learn in the US and stay afterwards. And regulatory restrictions might also affect somebody who might want to get a degree in law, a degree in accounting, where there are certifications or bar exams that you might need to pass. And those kind of regulatory restrictions also limit the types of education that you might get. So maybe I'll start with an example. My daughter just finished high school, and she was born in Florida, but we moved to Norway, and now she holds both a Norwegian and American citizenship. By her speaking, obviously being a very good student, but in addition to that, by her speaking Norwegian, she's able to attend multiple schools in Scandinavia. And because the Scandinavian system doesn't charge money for education, then she can also get it for free, and she's not limited by any amount. She just actually got accepted to medical school in Copenhagen, which I'm just very proud of her. Also, now think about it like that.
Now, Ilan, for example, let me ask this. So Copenhagen, so that's Denmark, right? So yeah. Is the education going to be in English, or is it enough to know Norwegian to study in Denmark?
So it's the University of Copenhagen. The University of Copenhagen Medical School is run in Danish. And because she speaks Norwegian, Danish is close enough linguistically that you can kind of pick it up very, very quickly. And therefore, she could study for free in medical school. And not only that, in a sense, she kind of skips over a bachelor's education that is required in the United States. She goes directly into medical school, and within 6 years after graduating high school, she might actually be a medical doctor.
Instead of getting
So,
a bachelor's first and then going to med school as it's done in the United States, right?
and also the entry exams are very different, right? I mean, I don't know what it is in the United States, but in Europe, it's just based on the grades that you got in school.
Yeah.
So you don't need, like in America, we require students to build a resume and to have voluntary services and to say that they're leaders of this and that,
And that's
create a
exactly what
persona out of a 17-year-old who hasn't done anything in their life, right?
and
I
that's
mean,
exactly what this program focuses on. We're trying to help students kind of develop that resume, but yeah, sometimes it almost feels like it's artificial. You're
sure,
yeah.
sure. You're 17 years old. How much can you do? First 15 years, you didn't know anything.
Yeah.
It's only the last 2 years that you can do anything. You didn't even get your driver's license by the time you're 17, let alone have any kind of real life experience, right? Or any kind of professional training or any kind of post education. Okay, so I mean, so starting point is like, what citizenship do I hold and what languages do I speak really kind of limit. And I say that, by the way, to companies too. When I say to them, well, you want to go global, you want to go to China, how many Chinese employees do you have? What do you know about China? Have you ever been anywhere there, near there, right? So I mean, what are your capabilities? That's the starting point, right, about where you want to go. The second is, what are your interests? You might have particular interest in artificial intelligence or in data, I don't know, big data modeling or medicine or engineering or whatever, right? And certain countries obviously are better known for it than others. Certain countries have maybe certain schools within countries have better reputation. So you have several layers of choosing, right? And then what about, is it available in the English language, right? I mean, if you only speak English and you're an American, so let's start with this assumption, I
Well,
guess, because that's
actually,
most of them.
I can give you a profile of
Yeah,
our students. So I'm looking
yeah.
now. So we have one from Hungary, a few from the United States, a couple from India, one from Russia, one from Canada, Nepal, Ghana, India. All speak
Okay, so you're
English.
not Americans, mostly international.
Yeah, well, we have a couple American, but yeah. And those are primarily aiming at the United States, but actually realizing how expensive it is in the United States, they're open to other countries, and hence this session today. But so they speak English, and
But I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, we have this kind of protectionism also that you need to think about, right? I mean, I was just thinking, like, when we were recruiting faculty in my university, we didn't even think about doing a big recruitment drive in Europe for academics, right? We did it in the United States. Probably you do the same, boss, in your school.
well, we place ads everywhere, whoever applies, but yes, most of the applications come from American professors or professors in the United States. They may be by
Correct.
origin from somewhere else, but
And the same thing in Europe,
Mhm.
and to a lesser extent in Asia, right? But nevertheless, you have this kind of very strong regionalism. Like, let's just say you come from Harvard and you go to Norway and you go to, I don't know, the Wall Street, Oslo, right? And you go into Oslo, the financial sector. Actually, nobody would give a crap that you came from Harvard. Harvard would play a very little role in your professional development. It's nice, of course, it's Harvard, but you might not be in this, the networks of the Oslo or I don't know, BI or whatever networks exist, in Oslo, in the financial sector. Not to mention the country clubs, and not to mention the parents knowing their parents, and not to mention all these other things that are required to move up in a particular industry. So I mean, it's not a kind of clean cut analysis where you could just say, oh, I want to go to this country or that country, and that's the answer for everyone. I mean, for example, let me just give you another service as an example. Right now I'm in Israel. Actually, I'm sitting outside in Israel in the sun, and I just found out that many of my friends have gotten like hair implants, and it turns out that there is like big hair implanting industry in Turkey, huge, and it's cheap and it's good, and everybody goes to Turkey. Now, I would have never thought about it, right? Like, I would have never thought to go to Turkey to get a hair implants. And I probably need it. And I didn't even think about it, right? So, so you have to really think about what is it you want to do? Like, where do you want to live after you graduate? And because if you want to be in a particular ecosystem, probably that's important, right?
So let me ask you this question, all three of you, then a specific question. So do you think if the person is aiming at a career, let's say in the United States, do you think getting education outside the United States may be then a viable option? Would that deprive you of those connections and of those opportunities? Or vice versa, if the person wants to build a career in Europe, would it be then maybe counterproductive to go and try to get an education in the United States? To all three of you, I don't know, Keith, Wendy, Ilan, yeah, go ahead, please.
So, I mean, I think it really, there's no cookie cutter answer here, in my opinion, because I can just ask you more questions, right? I could say, well, in what major? Are you going to finish with the bachelor's? Or are you going to go on and get a master's afterwards? Are you looking to get professional certifications to couple up with your formal education? I mean, for example, I think probably the cheapest and easiest way to get a professional salary and a professional career, the highest return on investment today, is to learn a computer language. I can put you in a 3-month program in a computer language program, a popular one, and you will be making $50,000, $60,000 a year. Almost as much as you and I as professors after 3 months of education as compared to 20 years of higher education in our case. So you really have to do, I mean, most of this analysis has to do about yourself, really understanding who you are, what you want to do, who you want to be, right?
All right. Okay.
So Vaz, I would have to,
Wendy and Keith, so what are your thoughts?
I would have to say it's going to depend on the student themselves. So at many of the universities I've taught at, okay, I've only taught at 3, but at all of those 3 in Europe, they tended to include internships. So students were getting access to jobs. They were getting access to companies. And as we know, most of the time, those internships are sort of feeder programs. If you do a great job in your internship, then, hey, they're going to probably want to hire you again. So if you're here in Europe, if you want to work in Europe and you're getting these internships here in Europe, that's a great chance to stay. That being said, I also know that many times internships are set up abroad. So if you wanted to study in Europe and then intern abroad, there's a good chance that you could develop that relationship and potentially even work, say, in the United States. Again, it's going to depend on the student, though. Let's face it, if you go and you treat your internship like, hey, I'm just going to sit here and drink coffee and, well, back when I was a kid, smoke cigarettes, not allowed anymore, then you're probably not going to be offered a job there. But if you're really engaged and you're really motivated, like most of the ex-culture students are, chances are that can turn into something. So it's going to depend on where you engage yourself.
So do I hear you correctly that education does have sort of regional appeal, but if you mix it up with some internships, for example, in the regions where you want to work, you can still play it right?
Yeah. A lot of the universities here. Now, also, I know a lot of universities, like when I taught in Thailand, they would do not only internships, but also a lot of competitions, like really big on competitions there. So if you're, for example, I had some students who took part in the L'Oreal competition, the L'Oreal Brandstorm. They actually won 2017, yay! But they were able to then transfer their internship. They were in Thailand and they wound up working in Malaysia. So, you know, if you get in with a company, the big thing is to be seen, to develop that relationship with a company. And it's amazing. If you're a great worker, companies want to keep you and they'll try to find a way to make it work.
How about you, Keith? What's your view on this?
I would like to a bit dispute with Elan about this regionalism, because indeed the USA is really a great market, and if we speak about Europe, there are smaller countries as Estonia, and even Norway is not so large country, and then large countries as France or Germany or Italy. But at least universities which I know and where I have lectured, including Finland, Estonia, France, also a bit in Denmark, the policy of universities is always to recruit, at least for elective courses, foreign lecturers. And also their policy is to make the student body as international as possible. At least my comments mainly are based on business studies. It's a bit different in medicine. So, for instance, I know to Estonian Business School in the framework of Erasmus student exchange always come students from many European countries. Though maybe even before Brexit, United Kingdom was not so well represented, but Australia, Canada, such countries were also represented. And for instance, if we take such a university quite well known in Italy as Bocconi, you can't even just graduate from Bocconi business studies if you have not had any exchange to a foreign university. And indeed, these who are better in Bocconi, they have more choice which countries to go, and these are who are not so good in the grades, maybe they have less choices. And well, Estonian Business School has actually, we have a branch in Finland. And now we sometimes think why students in Finland, which really has Finnish language, free education at university level, why they come to study at Helsinki branch of Estonian Business School, which is not so well-known university globally as Aalto University in Finland. And there are several reasons. One reason is really maybe there's quite hard competition to get into Aalto, even although it's free. Second is we provide more flexible education. In our branch, Estonian Business School branch, you can study by weekends also. So it's more comfortable for students who are working. And by the way, if we speak about Eastern Europe, it's one difference in even in at the bachelor level studies in business schools. Many students combine working and studying, and in a way it's a different career model. So and by the way, there was a talk that all education, university education in Nordic countries is free, but actually it's more tricky. Indeed, if you study in Finland in Finnish language, it's free. But if you study in foreign languages, then universities can charge fee. And because Estonian Business School is a private university, we also charge fee in our branch.
Are you talking about
around free? Next semester it is 3,775 euros. But
that's for what? That's for one course or for 1 year or
for one semester.
Okay.
It's semester, but the fee systems are at private universities, what I know, are quite complicated, because it's possible also to pay for a credit point. If you don't take the whole semester, you maybe are working, you don't want to take the whole workload at university, you only just take certain credit points. Then you don't pay the full semester fee. You pay for certain credit points. And by the way, that's the future trend also, at least at private universities in this region. I mean, Nordic countries and also Baltic countries. We introduce more and more nano degrees. And the idea of nano degree is that you combine your work, your career, and study. Maybe just you study, not take certain 2 semesters, combine with certain nano degrees, then you take some time off to working, then you again take 1 nano degree when you know better to what direction you would like to go in your career. But indeed, this nano degree discussion, it is more on at the master level.
Well, professors, let me ask you.
At bachelor level.
Professors, let me ask you a more specific question. So I'll give you two personas, two specific students in our group. And so the question is, where would they be able to study outside the United States? So let's say we have a student from Pakistan, speaks English, good grades, wants to be an engineer. And we have another student from the United States, again, good grades, speaks only English. And so the American student is worried that the education in the United States is too expensive, and maybe there is a better way to do it somewhere in Europe or in Asia or in the Middle East. And the student in Pakistan is worried that he will not get the stipend and will not be able to pay for his education in the United States. So he's looking also to apply somewhere else. So which places would be first legally possible? Because from what I hear, some of them language may be a problem, some of them a visa may be a problem. And second, which one will provide a viable path? So Wendy, you seem to have an answer to that. And then...
I do have an answer. So I taught in English at a program fully in English in the Netherlands. I've taught in English program fully in English in Austria. I know lots of programs that are fully in English in Germany, and I'll post some links as to where they can find information on this. The DAAD, which is directly translated the German Academic Exchange Program or Service, they have a list of all of the universities in the area, how much they cost. I took a quick glance yesterday. Literally, I did find a university in English for free for international students. But there are also some that cost thousands of dollars a semester. So it's going to range. Students are going to have to look and they'll have to apply. And of course, application is competitive, but you know, good ex-culture students should be able to compete pretty well there. And they range from business to engineering to medicine. So really it's open. It's very open as to where you want to go. And again, they do offer programs in English throughout Europe these days. One thing
can you give us examples of the universities where you can get an education, either business or engineering in Germany in English, like a specific school example? So sure, you're now at the University of Vienna, right? So you're in Austria.
No, I'm in Innsbruck, and I'm at the Management Center. I'm at Management Center Innsbruck. That's sort of the AACSB spin-off from the university. So, for example, I was checking last night for third country nationals who aren't part of the EU. If they studied at the University of Innsbruck, it would be about $1,000 a semester. Whereas if they studied at my school, I think we're a little bit more expensive. I think I saw the tuition was about 7,500 euro per semester. So we're a little bit more expensive. But I was looking in Germany yesterday, and I found the University of South Westphalia had a very exceedingly low student fee. So literally, like they weren't charging tuition, but they were charging the quote unquote student fee, which includes your bus ticket, it includes your insurance, and that's usually around 300 euro a semester, maybe 400 euro depending.
They're free by American standards.
Exactly, free by American standards. Another thing is that in Europe, the books are either super cheap or, like at the school I'm teaching at, they don't buy books really. We get them in the library. So then the students can check them out.
Which is a very big thing. So
online.
If you don't know, like for example, the textbook for my course is $170 at this time. You can buy a used one for like half the price. But if you add up all your courses, that's hundreds and hundreds every semester dollars just for the books.
Exactly. And here I know we cringe when we have to charge our students for a book because our students feel like education should be affordable. And the whole idea of spending hundreds of dollars per books goes against the idea of affordability. So we try our best to get the books in the library or find books that aren't hundreds of dollars. So again, that's another big savings.
Ilan, what's your recommendation for these two students?
Again, very difficult to say. I need more information. Is the Pakistani coming from a very rich family?
Well, my understanding is that most of them are not quite able to pay, at least not a full, if they get into.
Then America is out of the question. Then it's only Europe, really. If they're from a rich family, then they should go to the UK or America, But also people have to remember there's other costs involved, right? There's the living costs.
And that's
The
something I really
issue.
want to hear more
I mean,
about.
there is also insurance costs. There is also costs of being away from your family. There's also costs of having to fly in and out. And now during COVID, it's even more difficult.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
also the costs, you know, even if it's in English, even if the education is in English, maybe everything else around it is in German or Norwegian and in many cases it is.
Yeah.
So it require, are you ready to take the opportunity cost of learning that particularized language like Estonian? What would you do with Estonian or Norwegian or Finnish for that matter afterwards? I mean, why would you even need it unless you want to live there, right? And so there's so many country by country considerations. For example, in France, I'd say, you know, if you want to study business, then you want to be in the Grande École system because you will always, for the rest of your life, you will get a premium on your salary because you came from these great French business schools that are collaborating with industry. So I would have to say, like, if I was to coach that student, I would need to know a lot more about that student, about what he wants to do after
All right.
graduation, about his family background, about the specific intellectual capabilities that he or she has, about the standardized exam scores that they have, about their TOEFL scores, about their SAT
All right.
scores, and so on.
Let me give you that information. So, okay, like one of the kids here is my own kid, and I know his story. So he's at the STEM early college, like, you know, specialized education, relatively good grades, you know, smart, SAT, top 7% or something like that. So not top 1, but, you know, fine. So not great, but fine. And so ideally, I want him to stay somewhere close. Like if he got into Duke with a stipend here across the street, I would be happy, or NC's Chapel Hill in North Carolina.
Yeah, there you go.
But what if he doesn't? And what if his option are, you know, let's say he only gets into like a lower tier school, and then it still costs you tens of thousands of dollars a year. And so
That's
we're trying to think, you know, does it make sense to start looking?
So the best case scenario for him is Duke with a full scholarship, right? That would be amazing.
For example,
Probably, maybe, and if it happens, then no worries, right? You're set. But if it doesn't, then the choices are: will he go to a state university? And you know, in Florida, you can go to a state university and pay nothing, you know, if you're a top student, you know. So then the question is, does he want to live in Europe? For example, in Germany, you will get excellent STEM education, for example.
He wants to have some experience elsewhere, and that's why we're looking both at Europe, but also last time you shared some interesting ideas, as you said, like, for example, American campuses, like, you know, NYU in Shanghai, for example, or maybe Cornell in Dubai, or something like that. So that seems
but why would you want to study in Shanghai? Because you want to learn Chinese, you're passionate about, you know,
well, so the question
Chinese culture.
Is it worthwhile doing that? I mean, especially, you know, if you want to be, let's say, for example, in my kid's case, it's probably going to be something more STEM related. So first, would it save money? Second, would it be a valuable additional experience? And
anywhere is less expensive than America. America is the most expensive educational market, but America also has a lot to offer, right? In terms of, you know, services and different kind of specialized programs, right? I mean, in Norway, for example, you just get what everybody else gets, right? I mean, which is the average taxpayer paid, you know, type of plain vanilla education. And that's fine. It's good.
Let me ask you this then. So Tiet, Ilan, Wendy, so you taught in the United States, you taught all around the world. So quality-wise, so would you say that then, you know, European schools or Asian schools are not as good as American schools, for example? I mean, would you say there is a difference in the actual knowledge that they give?
I would say that there's a difference with the general knowledge because, for example, the 4-year bachelor here is 3 years in Europe because they take out all of those, I have to do an arts course and I have to do this course and I have to do my gen ed courses. They eliminate
less
those
general
and just
education.
specialize.
Less general education.
So your bachelor's quicker and yeah.
How about you, Tiet? So you have rich European experience, and you're the only one European. So these other professors, they're actually from the United States or from somewhere else.
Just
what's your opinion?
In another computer, I checked such a specialty what you can study at Tallinn Technology University. It's because Estonia is quite well known in cyber security
Yes.
engineering. And for instance, we have NATO cyber security center in Tallinn. And here we lay charge from non-EU residents, they charge 6,000 euro per year. And it's free, although it's in English, it's free for European Union and European Economic Area, which also includes Norway residents. So my argumentation is a bit different. So indeed, it depends very much on speciality, which country, which university, school, which speciality. We can't say just that Norway is good in everything or Norway is good, not so good in everything. So I am very sure that Norway has great experience in Arctic oil processing issues as an example. But what is the important thing here is, for instance, if you come to Caltech to study cybersecurity, education is also about networking. When I was for 2 months Harvard Business School, they had such European entrepreneurship colloquium for lectures. It was 10 years ago. They demonstrated me a very thick book, and they said, okay, if you go to do business in India, just pick up from this book graduates or Harvard, and then team up with these people, use their help to do business in India. So in my mind, if a US student comes to Europe, including Estonia or Finland or Germany, they also develop a network. And later, if they want to be a big boss in a branch of a US company in Europe or in a subsidiary, they might have more fast track than the person who has only studied in USA. That is also an argument. So many Finnish students study in our branch at Helsinki, and we tell to them that when they graduate, even after bachelor studies, they can't have already some managerial post in Finnish companies operating in Baltic countries or some other East European countries. So such a networking thinking is also important when you just consider your studies abroad. And
so Vas, if specifically
programs which are joint programs with US universities also. And just to finish my part here, I would say my own son studied, first he wanted to study at Estonian Business School. I said, no, come on, go abroad. It was just 20 years ago. He started to study at Aalto University. Then it was called Helsinki School of Economics. Taxpayers were very kind. First, they sent him for 1 semester to Hong Kong. Then he got to know a nice lady there, and this lady is now my daughter-in-law. And then they together had 1 semester in Rotterdam, in Netherlands. And finally, they both graduated Aalto University. And now they are working in Estonia. So think about also how broad is your networking ambition.
Okay.
specifically for your kid, Vas, if you want the country of origin effect, STEM, I would say Germany, Switzerland, and Europe. Again, you want to be in the heart, not in the tail. So when you're looking at the Nordic or Norway, I mean, it's great education, fine, but at the end, what's the important country in Europe? It's Germany, it's UK, it's that's where the jobs are, that's where the connections are, that's where the centers are. Probably in finance, UK more, London.
Elon, let me refine my question. So one of the strategy we've been considering for several students in our program is that go to Europe, get a bachelor's quickly, and then go to the United States for master's. So, and then for Europe, we've been primarily looking, again, with several students in private meetings. We thought about the Netherlands, mainly because we know much of that is in English and great country. We looked also at Denmark. Again, we had one of these culture events in Odense. Great impression about the University of Southern Denmark. We hear very good things about Norway from you, Ilan. You know, I work with some of your students, but also Wendy is in Austria, and every time she shows the picture, I'm like, wow. And German is not that difficult to learn. I mean, it's kind of not really, you know, but some people who have had exposure, so German can be, you know, easy to master. You also all said that the rest of communication will be in a local language. But again, I've been to all the countries that you mentioned, and it seems like everyone these days is conversational in English, so they will probably survive without the local language, at least, you know, for the first few months until they learn the words. So in your opinion, would that be a good strategy? Do bachelor's in Europe and then continue with a master's in the United States, or it's not necessarily a good strategy?
Depends on the student. You know, there's other factors that you also should consider, like emotional maturity. Being in a foreign country like Norway or Germany, where maybe they're not so open to people of different colors or different habits. For example, I'm just giving you that as an example. Or you might not have the foods that you're familiar with, or you might not have a lot of friends because Nordic people, they're not very open necessarily to other cultures, and they have their own cliques. So it depends on, like, really you have to know yourself. And I sent you, Vas, in an email right now, a case study that I've done for the University of Michigan on branding yourself, but it goes through kind of an analysis of yourself using business tools like SWOT and PEST.
Yeah.
So you can take a look at it. I use it with my students.
Let me ask you all very specific questions. So one, cost. So in Europe, yes, you can get the tuition nearly for free, but I know life in Europe is expensive. Food seems to be expensive. Transportation seems to be expensive. Gas is very expensive. So how much will it really cost for a kid from another country to get an education in Europe if you count all of those expenses in?
Well, ramen noodles cost the same in almost any country, so.
Yeah. But alcohol doesn't. So, so it really depends on your lifestyle, huh?
So, but yeah, if you can, so Estonia, Norway, and Austria. So roughly how much would I be as a parent looking at for my kid to be there, assuming that the education itself, let's assume that the tuition is free, so, or whatever it will be, because it will vary from school to school, but the cost of living, I assume, will be roughly the same. So I already added about $2,000 a year for travel, you know, Christmas trip back home. But how about being actually in Austria, in Estonia, and in Norway? How much would I be looking at in terms of the cost?
So the DAAD for Germany says about 820 euro a month.
So that's about $1,000?
Yeah, 900, 950. It's not that big. So assume $1,000 and your son will live the lap of luxury. Yeah, but it's going to largely depend on where they go to school. For example, Munich and Innsbruck are really expensive, whereas if you're out more in the country or in an area that's not as expensive, then it can be a lot less.
How about Norway? So you're not in.
Vas, it's a very simple answer to this. Actually, I teach it in my class. It's called Purchasing Power Parity. You could basically reverse engineer. And there's a website that you can go to that can tell you, like, let's say that you're used to $1,000 worth of spending in America. It will tell you what would be the equivalent.
So basically,
in any country, in any city, given that kind of lifestyle, like what would be, some things will cost more, some things will cost less. In general, the GDP per capita, I think, will give you a good kind of rough estimate,
so
right? Obviously, Estonia is going to be cheaper than Norway, for sure, right? I can tell you that. Right? By what factor? I don't know.
Life in your city. So you are in a sizable, but not the main city in Norway. So how much would a student be spending per month, you know, for a decent, you know, like to be not homeless, so to speak, but not a life of luxury?
So I have no idea, to be honest. I would say $500 a month for a room.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably buy $100 a week in the supermarket if you're, it depends what you eat. If you go out, drinking is very, very expensive, extremely expensive. $20 for a cup of beer in the bar.
Really?
So,
Oh, that's
so you go out once and you're already, your cost of living adjustments are accounted for. And again, what about healthcare, for example? What about if you need dentistry? What
about healthcare? So
I can guarantee to you that India will be the cheapest, right?
No, but looking at European countries, so would it require to buy additional healthcare? And if so, how much would it cost? Or would it be automatically sort of included in some way with tuition?
Actually, I remember when I studied, I did have to buy additional healthcare, and it was like all-inclusive healthcare. I never had to pay anything out of pocket, and I want to say it was no more than $100 a month for the additional that I had to buy as a non-European.
How about Estonia?
But really, listen, Vas. We have people living in Norway, which is the most expensive country in Europe.
That's my impression.
Coming from Africa or Pakistan and doing just fine, with very little money. So, I mean, it really depends how much you want to squeeze, all right?
Well, as a tourist, I was in Norway right before COVID, and it struck me as an extremely expensive country. I mean, gas was something like $8 a gallon. I mean, I'm not sure if the kids need to have a car.
No, if you're going to live in a dormitory by the university, there's not much to do. So you probably will end up spending more in Oslo just because there's more things to do, right?
Yeah. How about Estonia? So Estonia is a fully developed European country known for great industries, including like Skype, so we're using Zoom, sorry. Skype originally came from Estonia. How much would it cost to live in Estonia for a student, not counting the tuition?
I guess it depends on the quality of student room accommodation, because there might be better and worse student hostels, and also a lot of private accommodation is offered for students. I guess monthly fee would be somewhere between 100 and 250 US dollars. But alcohol, as already it was mentioned, in comparison with Norway, we have a great competitive advantage. I guess it will be around 3 times cheaper. I just was hiking in Austria last week, and I would say visiting restaurants. Maybe it depends again on the quality of restaurant. Maybe it's some 30–40% cheaper in Tallinn than in let's say hiking regions in Austria.
So it will be, so would you say then what, about $500 a month, maybe $600 a month?
Yeah, no, I think you could live with 500.
Okay,
Vas, you ask very American questions,
Yeah.
It's just the wrong question in my opinion.
And by the way, indeed, in many European countries, including Estonia, everybody who is student has automatically this medical insurance,
which is a big
without paying extra.
The difficulty is not the money. The difficulty that students face is social issues.
And so I actually have a question
mental
about
health. That's the money is so what? It's $100 more or less here or there. It doesn't really make a difference, really.
But
there's poor people in every country.
I want to get to that issue specifically. So let me just finish the money, because then I have questions about that mental, component. But just to finish the money part. So are there any stipends for the foreign students, and are foreign students allowed to work while they study to support themselves? How does it work in Europe?
If I may say, I checked Taltech, large technology university, at their website. They offer scholarships to non-EU students to cover this fee. I have to admit, for students in Estonia and at the Estonia Business School, we practically don't have scholarships. We have some scholarship based on progress in studies, but not just starting from the first semester. So it depends indeed. University politics, is it public university, is it private university, all the scholarship practice. But I would say, what is the solution? I am now teaching also students from Pakistan, from many African countries at the Estonian Institute of Applied Science. And many of them are working, some are working as couriers. Bolt, no, it's Estonian courier company, but some are also working in Estonian startups. And already during their, not mainly still during their master studies, MBA, but some are working during their bachelor's.
So it is legal that they are allowed to work a little bit in addition to schools?
No, generally no restrictions. Sometimes our ministry people of Ministry of Education are complaining that because of studies, students don't graduate in time, they take more semesters, etc. But again, in business studies, it's useful that people work during the studies. Maybe it doesn't apply to astronomy. I don't know.
So, okay, let's get to this question that
But Vas,
raised.
if I just also may say, you're comparing different products. You know, it's like saying, you know, what's better, the Toyota or the Mercedes or the Mazda? You know, it's like you get a different product. European education is a different product than American education.
So
it's
is it more like
less,
Mercedes or more like Opel?
It's more like Walmart. Okay, you have education that you get. That you're not getting personalization. You're not getting that personal support that you would get in an American university. You're getting, at least in Norway, one test at the end of the semester. You pass, you fail, whatever happens, happens. Faculty are not so strictly evaluated on you know what my students thought about me, and much more about my research. So it's a different attitude, I would say, in terms of the product. I'm not saying worse or better. For example, like the PhD. Let's take the PhD education in business. I mean, getting a PhD. Norway is the most generous country in the world, right? I mean, they will give you $50,000 a year to do your PhD. Okay, and you don't have to work, and you will do it in 3 years, and it's pretty good. You will publish it. I mean, you've seen some of my PhD students. They're okay. They're just as good, right? But you know what? Getting an American degree, PhD from America, where I had to go through defenses, several defenses and thesis and the whole 9 yards, did give me competitive advantage all over the world because I have a PhD from America. My PhD from America has given me competitive advantage in Europe and in Asia and in the Middle East. No question about it. Because it's a different product in a way.
I wanted to say about personalization. It depends very much not what kind of universities. I think it's if it's a European really large public university, then I agree. Maybe personalization is not a great thing. Or but if we think about such private business schools, we have really large study departments, and sometimes we lecturers joke that there are so many nice ladies who keep hands of our students and just listen to their stories, personal problems, and help them to sort out if they can't pay fee or get some negative grades. And what about lecturers? Let's say in a usual free ECTS, free credit points course, we are supposed to have at least 2 individual assignments or group assignments, then exam, or if it's a usual exam, you can take it 3 times. Also, it applies to Aalto University in Finland. Sometimes it's not traditional exam, it's exam project. So still, I would not say that personalization is missing. Not for this reason, also private universities charge a bit higher fee, not 3,000 euro per semester, but 3,700 or something.
Let me ask a few more very specific questions. So Elon mentioned an issue that could be a very important one, and that is the issue of sort of social connection. So I know, for example, I met some students in Japan when I was invited to teach a few lectures, international students, who said that they had been there for many years and they still never made any friends with the Japanese students. So they only hang out with other international students. So it's a very reserved culture. I've heard the same thing in the Middle East, like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. The good thing is that there are many internationals and they live in their own sort of communities, but the locals don't really hang out that much with internationals. On the other hand, for example, in Latin America, like for example, I go sometimes teach several times, have taught several times at EIFID in Medellin in Colombia. Lots of international students, and they actually say that they're the most popular people, like all the local kids want to hang out with them. And so they say that we're extremely welcome here. And then my own education, I went to high school in Germany, but it was in '93 at the time when the Soviet Union had collapsed. Nobody knew anything. So I was kind of novelty and everybody wanted to at least, talk to me. So I didn't feel excluded, but I hear that now Europe may be a little bit more sort of sensitive to, as Ilan said, ethnicity, maybe race, maybe place where you come from. In the United States, it doesn't seem to matter. We have people from all around the world and everybody sort of, at least at the student level, welcome and nobody seems to care. Canada, same way. But how about Europe? I mean, would a student, let's say from Pakistan or from Africa, or maybe from the United States for that matter, would they feel a little sort of excluded or perhaps not as welcome, or it shouldn't be a concern?
It depends on the student. If they're outgoing, if they try to find a way to meet people, then yes. But not all universities in Europe have the type of clubs and athletics and things like that that American universities have. So finding a way to connect with people is a little bit more challenging, but it can be done. There are a lot of groups and parties all over the place. If you go to a European university, there's a party every night in the beginning. So if you meet people, if you can go out and put yourself out there, you can meet people. But if you're not outgoing, if you're not ready to put yourself out there, then it can be a little bit more challenging.
But for me, it's not only the university. I mean, at the end, you have to get out of the university. You can't live in a bubble. And my experience in some countries, I travel a lot. I work all over the world. Are varied, and I'm adult, and I could take different things. But just to give you an example, that I work quite a lot in Poland. And Poland is a really fine country. I have many Polish friends and I work in many Polish universities and we have a lot of collaboration. But sometimes because of the way I look, being a brown-skinned person, I went to a couple of hairdressers and was denied service.
Whoa.
Just with the people just shaking no. Just no with their head. That's it. No. No is no. So, I mean, would I want to live there as a student and spend 4 years experiencing this kind of underlying racism in society? Even if I may have many girlfriends in Poland or whatsoever, even if I have many parties with my colleagues and my friends, it's a different kind of experience for somebody of color or somebody of different nationality or religions, for that matter. Being Jewish or being a Muslim in certain parts of the world could be problematic, even in the United States.
We have
the campuses are becoming a lot less Jewish friendly, even in the United States, believe it or not. I mean, maybe you don't realize it because you have to experience it to realize it. You have to be sensitive to it, So it's hard for somebody who is not black to tell you, what is it like to experience racism in America.
Yeah, I've been trying to pay attention to, yes, so black people, and even though on paper it looks perfect, but when you start paying attention, you can still see that there is some level of, I don't know if you want to call it racism or some sort of reservation, but there is definitely still not
or anti-Semitism on campuses in the United States is on the rise. You just Google it. You don't have to believe me. Can
I ask you this way? Like, for example, one of our professors, without going into the names of the university and professors, so one of our professors, after many years so a guy is white, originally from Canada. So after many years in Singapore, decided to leave Singapore due to basically the issue of essentially racism. So apparently Singaporeans are, being white there is not necessarily the best thing. So they are, of a big opinion of themselves for a good reason. It's a very developed country, but, even for a professor, that was an issue that, was kind of the last straw that broke the camel's back. So
But that's a very different experience
course,
than in Russia. I have a friend of mine, that Indian guy who came out of a restaurant and a couple of skinheads beat the shit out of him because he's Indian. I mean, that's another, they were not nice to me. They looked at me in a different way, or versus I just got my ass beat.
In Singapore, it's safe. Nobody's going to say anything, or it's more of a kind of at the subtle level. But anyway, you being foreigners in Europe, for example, or at least, Wendy, Ilan. So did you ever feel sort of, a challenge of being sort of a foreigner? I mean, you're not from Africa, for example. I guess it would have been a slightly different experience, but still, with your American sort of background credentials, was that to any extent sort of a limitation? I was very young when I was in Europe. I didn't feel anything, but again, that was a different time. And I mean, at 16.
So I don't know. I would say that being a Russian has certain stigmas in Europe. I would say that being a colored person has some challenges in Europe.
Still does.
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think so.
It's very friendly to Americans here.
Absolutely. America is the empire. Okay. So everybody hates and loves America. Everybody has visited America. Everybody would love to go visit America if they haven't visited it. For me, if anything, by the way, if I want to say something about being American, that would trump, like, once somebody if they saw my color and they judged me, if the minute they know I'm American, they already changed their attitude towards me in a positive way.
So we have students here from Egypt, from Russia, from Nepal, from Ecuador, from Ghana. I know in Canada and the United States, that wouldn't be a problem at all. Like they, at least at the university, there's no problem. How about in Europe? I mean, from those countries, would students be less welcome than in the United States?
If I may say, I am just now, at least not at Estonian Business School, but at least other University of Applied Business Sciences. I am studying, I am actually teaching some Nepalese students and some Indian students. And I would say that usually in our countries, in English language programs, there are always mixed groups. Yeah. There are always students together from different countries. I have had courses in Poland 2 years ago, and really in Poland, I happened to teach only Polish students. Maybe it's a larger country. They have separate streams for different students. But indeed, I would say challenge is how to get students from different foreign countries to integrate with each other. Because sometimes when we have teamwork, I want to create mixed teams. Yes. But they tend to, let's say, all Nigerian students want to be in one team. That is sometimes a lecture problem. But again, it's, I think, the mentality of students. Are they interested to have a global network or not? Yeah. Or they only want to do business with students who have are from the same district where they were born? That's the key question. Yeah. Now, racism is really a difficult issue. I think that if we take such countries as Baltic countries and also in Finland, there are not so many people who have not immigrated from African countries and who can visually be identified. Yes. So maybe
but I heard that Baltic countries don't like the Russians, for example. Yeah. Right? I mean, I heard some atrocious things that happened to Russians who were born in the Baltics.
But the good thing is that Baltic countries love Ukrainians, at least when I was.
Because you're the victim now, right? Yeah.
Now we have a big problem how to develop better relations between Ukraine and Russia.
Can I explain something about different universities, though? Yeah. You mentioned a very important factor about the universities of applied sciences. That's a very different experience than a university. A university, you're thrown into a big room where the lecturer lectures and you learn or you don't. In a university of applied science, you tend to be put into a cohort. in a much smaller group, and you go through your whole studies within that cohort. So you develop far deeper interpersonal relationships with that group because you're with them in every single class. Whereas the whole university where you're going to different classes, you're not necessarily in a cohort, and you're in lecture halls with 100 people, the way you interact with your colleagues is going to be far different, and you'll have to be more outgoing to be able to make connections in a university as opposed to in a university of applied sciences.
That's very interesting.
By the way, speaking of applied science universities, in Austria, in Germany, and in Switzerland, they're outstanding. I mean, in my opinion, you can get better education than in a regular university.
So what is the difference? Applied sciences, that's like a technical university, or what is
It's
it?
the polytechnic, it's more
Polytech,
applied,
yeah.
it's more internship based. Like, you know, say you learn engineering or business, you might do your last year working for a company and doing a thesis on the company or something like that. Or
And how do you know which one is applied science? Is it in the name?
they're called, they have applied science in their name.
So it's like tech in the, like Georgia Tech, Caltech, MIT type?
It's different. It's different. Georgia Tech is an engineering technology school. Okay, the applied sciences are designed to bring people to the workforce, not to be academic philosophers.
I see.
So
Good to
it's
know.
very, very good applied education, and they usually have very strong industry links. In Austria, for example, with all the local industries, with Germany, just outstanding applied universities. And the quality, the facilities, the funding, just outstanding, really.
Good to know. Yeah, I
I'm
didn't
very
know that.
impressed.
That's something, yeah, good to know. I have two more questions, if I may.
And by the way, professors there teach a lot, right? They teach 4 or 5 courses a semester. So they're dedicated to teaching, you know?
I'm teaching at a University of Applied Sciences, and I teach more than 4 or 5 courses a semester.
There you go. There you go. You teach a lot. But you know what? Over there, you care about the teaching quality.
Yeah.
You know,
At the
and whereas
university
at the university, you don't give a shit. It's just
So
like,
how
okay, you got your A-level journal, that's fine. You can be a shitty teacher.
So how many courses do you teach, Wendy, if I may? Because you do so much research. I mean, I know.
Yeah, I'm a little bit insane.
You're
I think we all
superhuman.
realized. I think in the fall semester I had taught like 7 classes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now in the spring semester I think I only taught 4, but in the fall semester I taught about 7 classes. Because
I will teach one.
my contract is for 18 credit hours a semester. So.
Whoa, that's a lot.
And what, by the way, if we may want to throw one more dimension to culture, and that's gender. And like, you know, everything I said about, like, let's say being a dark man in some, let's say, countries, being a dark woman doesn't have the same kind of problems. And for example, being a woman in the Nordic countries, you get a heads up. You get a better treatment. You get, you know, because they just push the gender issue very, very strongly in the Nordic countries. Probably stronger than any other country in the world. They got like, they were the first to enact laws on, you know, to enforce women on the board of publicly traded and large companies.
Yeah. That's good to know. All right, one question, if I may, and then I'll have one more, and so we need to respect your time. Don't laugh at this one, but as a parent, I have to ask. So I know that some European countries are very liberal when it comes to drugs. So we have the Netherlands, obviously, we have Portugal that completely legalized or decriminalized all of the drugs. And so I don't know, I mean, I'm a very liberal person, but when it comes to, you know, even pot, which apparently is relatively harmless, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with that. So my kid being alone there in Europe, or, you know, whoever else's kid, so would that be something I need to worry about? I mean, given the easy access to all that kind of stuff, or?
I think it's easier in the US. Easier access,
Yeah.
I mean.
It depends what you're looking for, right? What about sex? What about sexual diseases? What about, you know, that's the maturity issue, right? I mean, it would even make a difference. I know people who lived with their parents and did a lot of drugs, and I know people who went away and were able to keep themselves together. I personally think that marijuana is probably going to be legal almost all over the world in a very short period of time. And the heavy drugs are also going to be liberalized. Look at Canada. If it's any example, I think some phenomena, you could look at certain countries and you could see where the rest of the world is going.
Yeah. Yeah, Canada, yes, definitely at the forefront of, in this. But it sounds like worry, but no more than in the United States, right? So
Yeah,
basically,
but what about alcohol? I mean, like some people can drink alcohol and some people lose it, become alcoholics.
seems
And
like
don't
teenagers
forget
are
here,
not that interested in alcohol these days. It seems like there are all kinds of other products to mess with
Yeah.
their
and don't
mind.
forget though, here it's not the, oh my gosh, I'm 21, let's go binge drink. They've been drinking for a lot longer. So it's more like by the time you've hit this age, you're sort of old hat and you go out and you have a few drinks with friends, but it's not like, hey, let's do keggers where we keg stand things and stuff like that. That's not really here.
All right.
And it
Well,
also is personality, right? What is your kid attracted to? That they're attracted to these kind of experimental and crazy people. And yeah, they might end up there, no matter where they are. You'll find these people.
is Estonia a haven for experiments of that kind, or it's not a popular thing?
Where?
Estonia. So, I might
Estonia,
ask.
we have talks about legalizing cannabis and soft drinks, not soft drinks, but soft the narcotics. But it has not been decided. So no, it's illegal. But indeed, young people use it. But to be honest, I would like to have a mentor who will teach me how to recognize if a person in a class is under the influence, speaking stupid things, under the influence of narcotics or for some other reason. I don't have such expertise.
All
So
right.
it's not so not so popular among students.
That's good to know. Yeah. Last question. So we talked a lot about Europe for obvious reasons. You are all in Europe, but so how about? So let me get back to the original question. So China, and in particular, maybe. So I hear that China offers huge stipends to foreign students to go to Chinese universities as part of their sort of global expansion. But also, Ilan, you mentioned that there are some campuses of major American universities in China, and again, it may be easier to get in and perhaps get a cheaper education at an American school in China than in the United States. But also, I'm very interested in Israel. Again, I hear there are, I mean, obviously, some of the schools there are world class, and you have Nobel laureates teaching there. But then also, I see that there are a lot of opportunities in like United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. So are any of those countries, destinations are sort of viable options? And then Singapore, Hong Kong, so they seem to have very good, like world-class universities, and or Korea for that matter too. So would those be viable options for our smart students who are kind of aiming at a global successful career?
So China, I know a little bit about, as I taught there, and I think you can get fine education. Again, it's many people, so everything is big. And as a foreigner, you're something different and liked and hated at the same time if you're an American. So it's great, but you have to live in China, which means you have to breathe the polluted air and you have to drink polluted water, and you live in an authoritarian regime, with limited, access to information and Google and different things, right? So there's costs.
But on the, so all those costs do exist, but also the opportunity to establish guanxi with people, if you do want to have that international, especially with China,
Yeah,
could be a good option.
No question. And by the way, I'm a sinologist. I speak Chinese, and I've been there many times. I'm not saying it's bad. I personally benefited from having good relations in China.
Would you send your kids, Ilan? So your kids are going to college?
I will not.
You will not send. How about Hong Kong or Taiwan?
I would not send my daughter to China. Absolutely.
Same thing with Hong Kong and Taiwan, or is it only mainland China?
Now these days, I wouldn't send to Hong Kong, Taiwan. It's just I probably wouldn't send my daughter to, even though she speaks Chinese. By the way, my daughter, she speaks 5 languages, and because I was head of the China Center, I had a Chinese tutor when she was 3 years old, so she actually speaks the language. It wouldn't be my first choice, honestly. I mean, my first choice even wasn't Norway, in Europe, and my daughter came out of there. I wanted to be somewhere central in Europe. Where do you want to have the center of your life? I want to have my center of my life in Europe, in the United States, and for me personally, it's Israel. Israel is not a good market, in my opinion, for education.
And so, yeah,
Because
how about Israel? Yes, like, you know,
I don't think it's a good place,
you have
even though I'm
kept me
here
all-
right now, because it's a very closed market. Probably the people who are attracted to come to Israel are people who are Jewish, who want to learn Hebrew, want to marry someone here and settle over here and make aliyah. So that's the kind of people that come from overseas.
A non-Jewish kid in Israel, not the best idea, perhaps, or it doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters so much, but there's not that many options in English. Those that are in English, they're usually a lot more expensive, so it's a way for the universities to make money.
Mm-hmm.
So you would need to learn Hebrew again, like Norwegian and Estonian and other. This is like, what is the point of Hebrew? And it's like Spanish, German, Chinese. I get it, but Hebrew, unless you want to live in, or if you're Jewish, you want to read the Bible. I don't know. Maybe it's important, but for business purposes, I'm not sure.
Are you saying that in Israel they don't have enough variety of English programs? English.
I think you're limiting yourself to a very small number of programs.
Okay.
So again, if there is a particular program that is in English that is interesting, then of course do it. But
because if we take Estonian example, a variety of English program is quite large. So still, I am arguing. I can't, not about China. I can only say we had many Chinese students from mainland China 10, 15 years ago. Now we don't have so many. No, it's because of this result of this policy, what you mentioned. But at the same time, no, I will still argue that okay. It's New York is a great place, and when we have X-culture teams, also often U.S. students push that let's go and do business in USA and let's go to New York with our products. But you see, if it's a great metropole, to be the first in some field in a great metropole is very heavy task. But if a US student comes to Finland, to Estonia, to some other smaller country, I think he has or she has great chances to just team up with some entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, and help them to access US market. So it's more easy if you go choose some small place to study, to become a leader.
Yeah.
Especially if you have networks outside this small place.
Yeah. Now, students, I just realized I never gave you a chance to ask questions, so we have like literally 5 minutes left. So if you have any additional questions beyond what I'm asking, put them in the comments in the chat, and so I'll convey those questions. But one more question: I'm not sure if any of you have experience with Latin America. So I go to mainly Colombia and Mexico from time to time, and it seems like they have some very good universities there, often with stipends for foreign students as a way to attract international students and kind of diversify the student body. Would those, in your opinion, be a good option, like maybe for bachelor's or maybe 1 year to study, or again, with all the same limitations that you just discussed?
Bas, you actually went to teach in Colombia. Would you send your kid to study there?
I think I might. I mean, I'm looking at the students, like, for example, EFE, right? So most of the professors are actually from somewhere else. So they have a nice international body. I'm a little worried about, like you go to any store and there is a guy with a machine gun at the entrance. I'm not sure if it means that there is some risk. I mean, it seems safe to me, but, there are signs that suggest that perhaps maybe it's not as safe. But then I don't know. I mean, I haven't decided.
I think I wouldn't send my kid to any dangerous place, right? And I think Colombia is one of the most dangerous places on earth. I mean, I was there. I could feel it. Yeah, and I actually look local.
What is dangerous these days, though? I mean, let's face it, around the world, we're being confronted with, guns, shooting sprees in the US and terrorism elsewhere or all over the world. I think it's all relative at this point in time. I think that
Osnabrück, Tallinn, I think I can walk in any part of the city at 3 a.m. and I will be fine. But in some Colombian cities or American
agreed. Agreed. I mean, you'd pick the university in a safe area, but I wouldn't necessarily say just because the country has a bad reputation that all universities are bad in that area. It was just my sort of point to that. But I studied, when I was in my master's, I did a semester abroad at the Universidad Autónoma in Guadalajara. It was beautiful. It was amazing. And
Mexico, right?
that was in Mexico, and it was wonderful.
I was actually in Guadalajara at University of Guadalajara, and again, I was always accompanied by a professor or a student, and I felt extremely safe.
Yeah.
But then again, apparently they're somewhere in the crossroads of some like there is some sort of stuff going on there. So
come on, Vas, you have to, in Colombia, when you go to the bars, okay, even if you go to the best universities, you have to you have to get instructions about what happens when somebody comes out with a knife and how you should give him something. And then when you're getting picked up in the bar, then you have to get a taxi that is marked, you know, and they take the taxi number so they don't hijack you. It's a dangerous place, you know, a lot of these places. Now, is it fun? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. But it's dangerous.
Yeah.
No, make no mistake.
Well,
I think one thing that the students should consider, though, is not just where is fun to study and what options they have, but rather, can they get a job with that degree afterwards? So I would recommend that whatever they do, they consider that aspect too. Is, for example, I just posted a link. You can search the AACSB membership link to see which schools, if you're going for a business degree, which schools are AACSB accredited. That accreditation can help when you're trying to work in another country and they say, oh, well, tell me about this degree. Now, if you plan on working in the country where you're getting the degree, that's less of a problem. But if you do want to be international, then the accreditation is going to make a big difference as to your marketability around the world.
that's a very good point. And so one last question about Europe then. So if in Europe, and if English is your only language, so you don't speak German, Norwegian, Estonian, and so on. So what are the primary then countries? Do I understand correctly that there will be some programs in the Netherlands, Denmark, maybe Sweden, maybe Norway, but not as many?
Germany has a lot. I posted a link also in our chat where you can go and find English language programs. I teach in Austria. At least one of the programs that I teach is English only.
And you teach in English in Austria, right?
I have classes in English. I also make my students deal with my German, the poor kids, but.
Ilan, you also teach in English, right?
I teach in English, yeah, everywhere.
Yeah, and then Estonia offers some courses in English, or it's primarily Estonian?
And by the way,
programs are, all universities have some programs in English because they can charge money for programs. I mean, also public universities can charge money for English programs. They can't charge any money for programs which are conducted in Estonian.
So I didn't know that difference.
So if you want
like
to
in-state, out-of-state,
study free of charge, then indeed study Estonian before you come, but very few do it. Maybe some students from Finland do it because they study then medicine at Tartu University in Estonian.
Yeah, this is something I didn't know, so that's good to know. All right, well, let's stop here.
Let me ask you a question, Bas, if I may.
Yes.
I teach in 5 or 6 MBA programs around the world on a regular basis. Which one is the better MBA program? It's the same course I teach. So how would you choose among those?
Good point, yeah.
I teach, it's the same professor teaching the same course in the same way, right? And of course, the answer is it depends who else is in the class with you at the end of the day. Who do you want to be your classmates?
So would you say that there is a difference in the quality of the classmates?
Absolutely. It's a different kind of people, different nationalities, different. I mean, I teach in places like MIP School of Management in Trieste, Italy, where it's Italians are the minority. And I teach in Poland when there's not a single non-Polish student. And I teach in Russia. There's none, well, mostly Soviet students. So I mean, it depends what you want.
That's a very, very good point, because you're right. Education is not only the learning, not only even the connections, but also peer groups. So the interest, the sort of the peer pressure. And that's another good, very good point.
And would you send your kid to some top school in Russia, let's say
No.
Moscow MGU, because it's the best technology
Well,
school?
being Ukrainian, I mean, obviously.
Going back to my original point, going up. By the way, there's a lot of Ukrainians in studying.
But the universities in Europe that I sort of spent some time at, so Groningen in the Netherlands, south of Denmark, in Odense, Copenhagen, obviously. So those are, or München for that matter, I went to high school there and spent quite some time, both Freiburg and München Technical University. So those seem to me like very, very good options. They have probably close to half of all the students international, mostly from other European countries, but also from around the world. And so they seem to me as good or maybe even better than many comparable American universities. So would that be then unwise to send kids there, or is it's a good option? So I don't know. Like those
check to see the accreditation, especially Munich. It's one of the top in Germany. So
if you can get in, obviously, right? So it's
yeah, that would be the big thing.
Yeah.
For your child, TUM, TUM in Germany.
I sent you a link to TUM, Buzz.
Yeah, so
that would be like a top school, top engineering, top in sciences, very applied, very excellent school, I would say.
Well, we'll have to see. So we also spent some time at the University of Macerata in Italy. So it's not necessarily the biggest school, one of the oldest, but not necessarily. But again, the town, it was just wow. I mean, it's so, like that's your classic Europe with the streets that are, your car cannot get through. Literally everything is hundreds, if not thousands of years old. But then again, perhaps that's not, the most known university, just being in a small town, a smaller school. Again, it seems like a great option to me, but that's one where I'm a little bit less. Like Copenhagen, no question. I mean, it's a world-class school, and like in business, it's probably top 10 no matter how you count. I'm not sure about medicine or engineering, but I assume it's a top class, top world school. But smaller ones, that's where I'm like, okay, I don't know. So that's where it becomes a little bit trickier. So same thing, like we do some research with Vienna, for example. Again, I mean, obviously that's a world-class school, but I'm not sure about like if you go to some smaller places in Austria, would that be still worthwhile or less or so?
Again, depending on where you want to stay, check the accreditation. If you're going into business, an AACSB accreditation will be recognized around the world, which means your degree is recognized around the world. If you go to smaller schools that maybe aren't yet accredited, then you have to make sure that somehow you're getting the work experience or something so that your degree can be recognized in your home country.
Good to know. Well, I suggest we stop here, and I hope you don't mind if I share this recording not only with the Excelsior students in this program, but maybe broader, because these are very, very important questions, at least for parents whose kids are now getting of age and will be applying to school soon. And so it was very informative to me, I know, so I'm sure it will be informative to others as well. So, all right, well, thank you so much. Let's stop here. Truly appreciate your time. I know some of you had to wake up so early on Sunday and others had to break your family vacation to talk to us. I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. And the information is very useful. So it will serve many generations of our students and guide them as they're choosing their schools. Thank you. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend or whatever's left of it. So, thank you.